Most people assume money has to come first. First, the bigger income, then the better life. First, the safety, then the enjoyment. First, the success, then the ease. But the deeper truth may be the reverse. The more fully you learn to enjoy the life in front of you, the more naturally wealth begins to move toward you. This is not sentiment, and it is not laziness dressed up as spirituality. It is one of the most misunderstood truths about abundance. Enjoyment is not the reward at the end of prosperity. It is part of the doorway into it. Maybe your life is already stable enough. You earn enough to get by. You have some savings, some achievement, some passing moments of pleasure. And still, somewhere underneath it all, there is that quiet feeling. It is not enough. Not because your life is failing, but because what you want is finer than income alone. You want a deeper kind of richness, a steadier kind of peace, a fuller sense of being met by life. The issue is not always your circumstances. Often it is a neglected inner capacity. Do you actually know how to enjoy what is already here? Real abundance is not a luxury reserved for some future version of you. It is a rhythm you can begin practicing now. A willingness to let in what is good, instead of delaying it until you feel you have earned the right to receive it. We were taught that effort produces reward, so we learned to treat enjoyment as an outcome instead of a cause. But what if your willingness to enjoy life is part of what makes abundance possible? A fruit does not ripen and then discover sunlight. It ripens because it has lived in sunlight all along. The richness you want is not a prize waiting somewhere in the future. It begins the moment you let yourself enjoy life now. This is Momentum Arc, a space for inner exploration and spiritual growth. Your likes, comments, subscriptions, and super thanks help this work reach more people who are ready for real change. Gay Hendricks, Ph.D., is one of the most influential psychologists in modern conversations about success, creativity, and inner limitation. Trained at Stanford and known for decades of work on subconscious behavior, relationships, and body-mind integration, he has helped countless people understand why they sabotage the very happiness they say they want. His 2009 book, The Big Leap, became especially influential because it put language around something many people had felt but could not explain. Why is it that just as life starts getting easier, more loving, more prosperous, or more beautiful, we suddenly do something to shrink it again? Hendricks called this the upper limit problem. He argued that many people cannot remain inside happiness, success, or love for very long, not because they lack intelligence or talent, but because some hidden part of them resists joy itself. It is as if the psyche carries an emotional thermostat. The moment life becomes better than what feels familiar, the system starts cooling everything down. That is why people create conflict after a breakthrough, why they overwork when life finally gets lighter, why they feel strangely uneasy when good fortune arrives too easily, why they sabotage peace just when it begins to feel real. This is not random. It is an issue of receiving capacity. The real practice, then, is not simply working harder to get happiness. It is increasing your ability to hold happiness, remain inside it, and let it stay without unconsciously pushing it away. And in many Eastern cultural settings, that difficulty is even deeper. We are often taught to endure, to sacrifice, to suffer first and enjoy later. Pleasure is made suspicious. Ease is treated as weakness. Rest must be justified. Joy must be earned. So we quietly develop what could be called a suffering quota. Only after enough effort, enough proof, enough self-denial, do we finally permit ourselves a little relief. And that invisible rule becomes one of the biggest barriers between us and prosperity. To understand why enjoyment can change the financial texture of a life, we have to look at it from the level of energy. Across both ancient wisdom traditions and more contemporary ideas about resonance, one principle keeps returning. Everything vibrates at a certain frequency. The state you live in affects the kind of life you can hold. When you are in gratitude, openness, love, pleasure, and ease, your whole system shifts. Your breathing changes, your muscles soften, your nervous system becomes more coherent, your body stops broadcasting emergency and starts broadcasting readiness. And that matters because abundance responds not only to what you want, but to what you are. Most people think enjoyment is the result of getting what they asked for, but that is one of the deepest reversals in the whole discussion. Enjoyment is not what comes after abundance. Enjoyment is part of how you enter into alignment with it. It is a signal to life. I am ready to receive more than survival. I am ready to inhabit something larger. This is not fake positivity. It is not about pretending life is perfect. It is about no longer organizing your whole identity around lack. When your body is relaxed, your cells are less defensive, your nervous system is less chaotic, your actions become less desperate. You stop trying to prove your worth through force. That shift changes the way you move, create, choose, and relate. You are no longer trying to own abundance through effort alone. You are beginning to allow it. And Hendricks names the place where this becomes most natural: the zone of genius. This is not merely skill. It is the state in which your deepest nature and your natural joy begin working together. In that zone, your action no longer comes from fear or comparison. It comes from aliveness. Creation stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like expression. Success stops being proof and starts becoming a side effect of alignment. That is why the version of you who can manifest wealth is not the most exhausted version of you. It is the most open one. What you call scarcity is often not simply a lack of money. It is a broken relationship with joy. Many people place enjoyment at the very end of life. They say, "I'll rest when I make enough. I'll travel when I get promoted. I'll play music when I retire. I'll relax when everything is finally handled." But every time happiness is postponed like that, something important is being delayed along with it. Your ability to connect with the present, your ability to open, your ability to feel safe inside life now. Scarcity is not only low numbers, it is the habit of withholding pleasure from yourself. You get used to doubting, delaying, postponing, tightening. You stop allowing small forms of joy that do not need permission from achievement. You stop thanking yourself on ordinary days. You lose touch with the subtle nourishment available in simple experience. That is how a body becomes numb to abundance. A quiet cup of coffee, a melody you hum along with, the color of evening light, the feeling of slowing down enough to notice your own life. These things are not a waste of time. They are gentle openings through which your system relearns worthiness. Each small moment of honest enjoyment tells life, "I do not need to wait until the end of struggle to receive something good." And once the body starts believing that,
wealth no longer feels like something foreign. It begins to feel more compatible with who you already are. Being rich is not only about what sits in an account, it is also about whether you wake up with steadiness in your chest, peace in your pace, and less war inside your own mind. The more naturally you can enjoy life without guilt, the less easily you are controlled by external pressure, social expectation, or old emotional residue. That inner steadiness becomes its own kind of wealth. Quiet, stable, hard to shake.
In The Big Leap, Hendricks offers a striking insight. What truly blocks happiness and success is not external limitation, but your internal tolerance for happiness itself. This is the upper limit problem in action. As soon as life gets better, some old internal alarm goes off. You procrastinate, you overwork, you start conflict, you get sick, you suddenly feel off. In other words, when abundance approaches, the system drags you back toward what is familiar. Not because you do not deserve more, but because you have not yet trained yourself to hold more. That is why enjoyment matters so much. It expands your capacity to remain inside what is good without collapsing it. Hendricks outlines several key moves in this transformation. First, you learn to notice how you sabotage happiness. Second, you choose to enter your zone of genius instead of living in fear, obligation, or comparison. Third, you clear guilt and self-doubt that still make joy feel unsafe. Fourth, you stop treating joy as a rare reward and start building it into daily life as a lived condition. This is not shallow, positive thinking. It is a deep recalibration of frequency. When you remain inside joy, ease, creativity, and trust for longer stretches of time, you stop trying to manufacture outcomes through strain alone. Instead, your entire being becomes more coherent, and outcomes begin to gather around that coherence. This is why the people who live at a higher frequency over long periods are not necessarily the most aggressive people in the room. Often, they are the ones who have made happiness into a habit. They know how to draw energy from the present moment. They know how to stop tearing themselves apart in order to prove seriousness. They know how to work from deeper alignment, and when that happens, abundance no longer feels accidental. It feels like a natural extension of the frequency they have learned to live in. The turning point begins when you realize that breaking through is not about adding more force. It is about releasing the habits that keep making happiness feel dangerous. You do not need to become harsher with yourself. You need to allow more. Allowance is not passivity. It is a shift in frequency. It is the loosening of a system that has been gripping too hard for too long. Hendricks points out that the people who remain in abundance the longest are not always the smartest or the hardest working. They are the ones willing to let joy become normal. They do not panic when life gets good. They do not feel guilty for ease. They practice making peace feel familiar. So ask yourself directly, do I allow myself to be this happy? Do I allow a large sum of money to come in easily? Do I allow my body to relax without explanation? Do I allow myself to enjoy life without earning that enjoyment through suffering first? At first, these questions may sound uncomfortable, even embarrassing. That discomfort is part of the point. Your subconscious is still trying to regulate how much happiness you think you are allowed to feel. You may still be living inside the belief that joy must be purchased with exhaustion, sacrifice, or proof.
But every act of honest allowance breaks that pattern a little more. Allowance does not tell the universe what to send. It tells the universe that you are finally prepared to receive it. And that preparation does not come from outer effort. It comes from an inward sentence that is quiet, steady, and transformative. I can. I am worthy. I am allowed.
The richer life you want may not begin with a bigger bank balance. It may begin with whether you can enjoy a meal, a coffee, a rainy afternoon, a piece of music, or a quiet evening without guilt, without performance, and without needing to justify it. The world does not always reward the person who is working the hardest, but it does respond to people who know how to resonate with life instead of constantly bracing against it. When enjoyment becomes part of your daily rhythm, happiness stops being something you chase and starts becoming something you extend. Your breathing changes, your pace changes, your decisions change. The whole conversation between you and life begins to shift. Real manifestation is not built from gritted teeth. It is not the product of endless strain. It begins when you live more often in the state that is most natural, most open, most loving, and least defended inside you. You stop trying to earn happiness through being good enough. You start receiving from the deeper truth that you were already worthy of receiving. The more fully you learn how to enjoy life, the richer you become. Not only because money may respond differently, but because your whole field changes. The frequency of your life becomes more spacious, more magnetic, more alive. Abundance never truly left. It has been waiting for your nervous system to stop treating it like a threat, waiting for you to loosen your grip on doubt, waiting for you to stop postponing your own aliveness. And then, at some quiet and almost ordinary moment, you may finally be able to say, "Now is enough. Now is allowed. Now can begin."